Namaste and welcome. We'll begin with meditation, as always. Sit with your head, neck, and trunk aligned. And feel the space your body occupies. From head to toe, inside your skin. This very sacred meditation cave. Bring your mind back from all other space. Feel the flow and the touch of the breath in your nostrils. Spend a moment just savoring being alive here and now. Feel the wave of breath and prana. Sustaining your life, nourishing your body, cleansing with the exhaling breath, energizing with the inhaling breath. And notice how your breath has begun to settle, to become smoother and longer and more subtle. Let that natural process of settling continue. Notice how the settling of the breath also begins to settle the body. Feel inside the top of your head and your forehead. Feel into any tight spots you find, gently and lovingly, until the muscles just let go. And then feel around your eyes and eyebrows. And into your cheeks and the corners of your mouth. Let your cheeks just hang on the bones of your face. Feel into the corners of your jaw. Relax your jaw. Relax the muscles in your neck. And from your throat center, feel out along your shoulders toward your fingertips. Allow your breath to flow. Relax your upper arms. your forearms, your hands, your fingers, and fingertips. From your fingertips, feel back inside your fingers. Let your fingers go as if they could just float away. And then feel back into your hands. And let your hands go. Feel back into your forearms. And release your forearms. Release your upper arms. Relax your shoulders. And from your throat center, feel down into your chest. Relax your upper chest and upper back. Relax the muscles between your ribs. Feel into the center of your chest. Exhaling and inhaling, free and deep. It's the center of your chest. And feel down into your abdomen. Relax your belly muscles. Relax your navel center. Feel down into your hip joints, your gluteal muscles, your thighs, feel down into your calves and lower legs. Again, wherever you find tension or tightness, feel into the middle of it until the muscles just let go. Feel into your calves and lower legs, your feet, and your toes. Feel all your toes. Whole body at peace. Still. Your toes and feel back inside your feet. And back inside your ankles. Your calves and lower legs. Your knees. Your thighs. Gluteal muscles. Your hip joints. Your abdomen and diaphragm. Your navel center. Your heart center. And your whole chest. Relax your throat center. And from your shoulders to your fingertips and back again. Your neck, your jaw, cheeks, and the corners of your mouth, eyes and eyebrows, forehead and the top of your head. Feel the current of breath and prana between your navel and your nostrils. And just listen. Listen for your mantra to come to your mind in whatever way it comes. Feel that gentle song. Draw your mind more and more still. And feel that flow along the bridge of your nose between Ajna Chakra and Nasagra, where the nose bridge meets the upper lip. And then flow through the left hand channel in the left nostril area. Mantra sound resonating in that space. Feel that flow through the right hand channel in the right nostril, Pingala. Release left and right, and sink into the middle space, Madhyastha. Breath may become subtle, let it go. Just follow the presence of the mantra. See where the Shakti calls you to a silent chamber, to the pathway along the spine, to a chakra. Follow where the Shakti leads. Awareness being. To thought. Again, ripple the surface of your calm mind. Let it merge in the flow of breath from head to toe. Your whole mind become full of that sound. And keeping this awareness, let your mind turn gently outwards. Your palms come to your face. And your eyes gently open. Let your heart fill your palms with fragrant blossoms of gratitude for the well-being of all creatures and to the Guru force, the Guru light, binding us heart to heart over these distances. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. I will just take a moment to shut my door here. Here we are. We left off last session at Sutra 27 in chapter 6. I want to get started tonight by just backtracking a little bit to reestablish the context. He was talking about this chapter is about working with anger and with painful emotions, with klesha. And in the commentary on the 21st verse, Chudran says, Shantideva cites three benefits of pain. First, it is valuable because through sorrow, pride is driven out. No matter how arrogant and condescending we've been, great suffering can humble us. We all have enough life experience to know that's the truth. The pain of a serious illness or the loss of a loved one can be transformative, softening us, making us less self-centered. The second benefit of pain is empathy. The compassion felt for those who wander in samsara. Our personal suffering brings compassion for others in the same situation. A young woman was telling me that her baby died. When her baby died, she felt a deep connection to all the other parents who had lost children. This was, as she put it, the unexpected blessing of her sorrow. And I think we can all think of examples of that in our lives. And especially, I think, as a therapist, I know when people take the time to really work through their suffering, they develop a greater sensitivity to the suffering of others. With sadness, we realize that we're all in the same predicament. We're all caught by the kleshas and continually blocking our basic goodness. Here, Shantideva expresses compassion for everyone wandering in samsara, especially those with no interest in finding freedom. The third value of suffering is that evil is avoided and goodness seems delightful. When we practice according to Shantideva's instructions, we can get smarter about cause and result. Based on this understanding, we'll have less inclination to do harm and more desire to gather virtue and benefit others. It's more than that. We also feel the constrictedness of so-called evil. It's a small emotional space. It's a restriction to our heart to act in ways that we conventionally consider evil. That's one of the reasons why. One of the things I like about Shantideva's work is that it takes away the sort of moral valence and just looks at our behavior as our behavior. It is what it is. We do what we do, and we reap the fruits of that. Virtue is a heart opening space. And that's one of the ways I think to know the difference between the two. You know, if you feel more open, then chances are you're going in a virtuous path, in a path that's following your swadharma. I once stayed with a friend whose dog has an uncontrollable fear of brooms. Just getting the broom out of the closet and starting to sweep sends the poor creature into a tailspin. Although he is no longer in danger of being harmed, he still reacts with terror. You can't convince a dog not to be afraid of brooms, but you can work with your own mind and phobias. We all have our brooms. We all have our triggers. We may never know what happened in the past to trigger our current response. But in this very moment, we can work with our mind and develop patience. We don't have to spend a lifetime building up a case about the badness of brooms or the wrongness of our emotions or the evil of somebody else. We can just focus on attending to whatever suffering is before us, either in our own heart or in the heart of others. So in verse 27, Shantideva says, that which is referred to as the primal substance, that which has been labeled as the self, do not come into being thinking, that is how I will arise. That which is not manifest is not yet there. So what could want to come to be and permanently draw toward its object? It can never cease from being so. Indeed, this self, if permanent, is certainly impassible like space itself. And should it meet with other factors, how should they affect it, since it is unchanging? If when things occur, it stays unchanged, and as before, what influence has action on it? They say that this affects the self, but what connection could there be between them? here we could get bogged down in one of the intellectual arguments between Buddhism and the Hindu way of thinking about self or non-self. Both sides seem to have a stereotypical understanding of each other. And I think it's not unfair to say that both things are true. There isn't really a unitary truth here. Both things are true. There's a certain sense in which our self is not permanent because what Shantideva is referring to here is our sense of our psychological self. Of course, it's changing all the time. I am not the same person I was when I was 20, let me tell you. Um, and yet there is some kind of continuity here of consciousness. And I don't think that Buddha argues that there's no consciousness. And the way that the yoga system talks about this is to think of the medium in which all of this Sturm und Drang occurs is chitta, the so-called mind stuff, which is the intangible fabric of the entire universe. So for the moment, let's not get caught up in the argument and just sort of immerse ourselves in what Shantideva is trying to say about the nature of action and its effects on us. Chodron says this section refutes the views of certain non-Buddhist schools of thought in Shantideva's time. One school believed in a primal substance, another in the Atman or self with a capital S. In brief, these were beliefs in an absolute unchanging principle, similar to notions of a soul or God. And we don't know what that is, you know? We don't, because we don't have the experience of it yet, of whatever it might be, of whatever that mystery might contain. Because we long for certainty and something to hold on to, it's very reassuring to believe in some permanent external essence that underlies everything. That's certainly true of human psychology. We like to have something to hang on to, in the midst of all of this crazy world we live in. While we play out our relative dramas of hope and fear, there's no confusion in this underlying strata, which remains pure, unchanging, and undisturbed. The Buddha, however, refuted such views. Nothing is unchanging or separate. The notion of an external, permanent essence is what Shantideva disproves here. External, that's the key. Objective. And in truth, whatever the Atman is, it is not objective. It's not an object. You can't approach it as an object. If you do that, you'll never find it. You have to go to the layer of experience in consciousness that is before there is the formation of a subject and an object. She goes on. He is not, however, positing a belief in anything else. If he were to say all is emptiness, Shantideva would refute that too. His intention is to pull the rug out from under any fixed view or solidified way of thinking. Instead, he points us toward the indescribable openness of mind, a mind free from any conceptualization whatsoever. Chitta vritti nirodha is the Sanskrit phrase for that kind of mind. What is the day-to-day relevance of these verses? It's to give up creating more concepts. Don't get trapped by set ideas of self or other or anything else. Don't buy into that fixated thinking that results in anger. Shantideva argues that any belief in a fixed or permanent entity doesn't make sense. If it hadn't yet manifested, then it could never come to be. If it already existed and was drawn in a certain direction, it could never cease from doing so. In other words, if things were fixed the way we think they are, then nothing could ever change. And that wouldn't be good either, because it would mean nothing could get better. 31 here. All things, then, depend on something else. On this depends the fact that none are independent. Knowing this, we will not be annoyed at objects that resemble magical appearances. This touches the Buddhist notion of dependent origination. And one, probably the most common formulation of that is the doctrine of Pratitya Samutpada, which means that each moment is created by the preceding moment, that there's no underlying continuity running the whole show, that it's just an evolving experience. And that's certainly how we experience it, at least for the moment. Children's commentary says, in the first two lines, Shantideva again says, all things are the result of complex causes and conditions. Nothing exists independently. In the second two lines, he teaches on emptiness. Nothing is as it appears. We're like dream people getting annoyed at dream objects. Experiencing this even momentarily, we see the absurdity of working ourselves into a frenzy. This teaching on the insubstantial nature of everything is an important one to contemplate when going through the pain of detox. This paragraph of commentary is very much the position of the Yoga Vasishtha, for example, which is a fascinating text that originated in Kashmir in the 7th or 8th century, in this incredible mix of cultures that had gone on at that point for almost 1,000 years. Buddha and the Buddhists came through in around 500 CE. The Greeks came in around 300 CE. And it's not like they just came with a military campaign and then left. That didn't happen. They stayed. And they formed, particularly in Afghanistan, the Indo-Greek Bactrian kingdom. I recently have, in fact, I'll show you one. I have recently gotten a coin. Here it is. I don't know, you probably can't see it. It's a small coin. It's about the size of a American 10-cent coin. And it is a coin of the King Menander. And you see here a kind of a typical Greek coin. This was minted in around 100 BCE. And this King Menander was a Greek king. He was also a Buddhist. He was a Buddhist monk. He was a Greek king who was a Buddhist monk. And there's a famous text in the Theravada literature called Milinda Panha, the questions of this king, King Menander. He went to a Buddhist teacher. On the back of the coin, again, in typical Greek fashion, we have a picture of the goddess Athena, who was the deity of wisdom, Saraswati, in the ancient pantheon of Greek divinities. And Athena was the deity, patron deity of Athens, and so of the efflorescence of philosophical thought that happened in Athens around and just prior to that time. So all of that thought came in. The Buddhists came, the Greeks came. A few centuries later, the Sufis came. So all these different schools were mixing around in this part of India. And what came out of that was this fabulous text called Yoga Vasishtha that some people say is an Advaita Vedanta text. Other people say it's a Buddhist text. There are all sorts of differing opinions on this because it catches this, this paradoxical nature of things that you can't quite get your finger on. Why? Because the origin of it is from before there were subjects and objects. And so the Yoga Vasishtha says, this entire world is our dream. This life that you created for yourself is a dream. It's swapna, dream sleep. And the yogis, when they do their yoga nidra, when they really do their yoga nidra, and they go into that deep state of observation from inside the core of their mind, they become truly awake in turiya. And they realize, oh my God, this life I was living was just a dream. So the two paths walk side by side in practice. They each have different ways of expressing the experience. And those ways apparently conflict with each other, but that's just a phenomenon of language. That's just an artifact of language. It's just words. Verse 32 says, resistance, you may say, is out of place. For what will be opposed by whom? The stream of suffering is cut through by patience. There's nothing inappropriate in wanting that. It's a really important point. If everything is a magical appearance, Churden says in the commentary, what's the point of practicing patience? But working with patience ends suffering. How does it do that? I had a conversation this evening with a young protege of mine, someone who's a chosen son, and did a marriage ceremony for him and his partner a couple years ago. And they've gone through a process of transformation as they've grown together over time. And all of a sudden, my son's partner is plunged into a moment in his life where, even though up to this point he's always had all the answers, and he's an incredibly emotionally intelligent person, there's something going on that has him completely baffled and frustrated at the moment. It's like he's trying to take his next step in life, and he can't figure out what it is. Now, the guy who is my son is somebody who is an eminently practical person. The thing I love about him is he's a real problem solver, very down to earth kind of guy. So when he is trying to help his partner, he's going to try to come up with an answer. And that's not what his partner needs right now, you know? Because whatever answer he comes up with, it's gonna miss the mark because it's coming out of his experience. What he needs to do with his partner is just listen with an open heart. And when he sees things going on with his partner, reflect those back to him. And that presence by itself, that open-hearted listening, I've said time and again, is the real medicine that's there in psychotherapy or in friendship or in any other kind of important relationship. How you are with people is what people remember. And how you are with them is what often helps them to go deeper in their own experience to find their own answer. My son's partner needs to find his own answer. He doesn't need to get one from my son. That wouldn't work. And it would be just one more thing for them to have a fight about, I suppose. So I hope that he has the patience to just listen with an open heart. And he's done some good work with himself in the last few years to put himself in a position to be able to do that. And I think many ways that's the best we ever offer people. We think we need to say something. You don't. You just need to listen. And listen, when I say open heart, I mean listen with your emotional sensitivity and vulnerability. This is what Jesus talked about all the time. He kept saying, don't be like those people in the temple. They're all concerned with whether you're following the rules or not, with who you pay your taxes to. Who cares? Is there a hungry person in front of you? Well, for God's sakes, feed them. For my sake, feed them, clothe them, visit with them, be with them, with your heart showing. That's the thing that was marvelous about Jesus as a person. People saw his open-heartedness. This is the thing I like so much about this series, The Chosen, because it shows that side of Jesus' relationship with his disciples and other people. The mystery of the incarnation is that he was entirely human and entirely divine at the same time. And what people experienced was the depth of his human heart in those moments. He said, when you do those things for people, it's as though you're doing it for me in person. He said it that clearly. Verse 33. Thus, when enemies or friends are seen to act improperly, be calm and call to mind that everything arises from conditions. Children says he asks us to be calm. No matter who behaves improperly, enemies or friends, don't get so heated up and opinionated. Be calm and practice patience. In this case, by reflecting on the fact that why they do what they do is not so obvious. It arises from a variety of causes and conditions. There's some pain in there somewhere that's at the core of this bad behavior. She says this ends the section on the second kind of patience, the patience that comes from realizing the complex reality of all situations. Verses 34 through 51 explore the third kind of patience, the patience that comes from developing tolerance. 34. If things occurred to living beings following their wishes and intentions, how could sorrow ever come to them? For there is no one who desires to suffer. 35. Yet carelessly, all unaware, they tear themselves on thorns and briars, and ardent in pursuit of wives and goods, they starve themselves of nourishment. 36. Some hang themselves, or leap into the void, or eat bad food, or swallow deadly poison, or by their evil conduct bring destruction on themselves. 37. When affliction seizes them, they kill themselves, the selves they love so much. So how could they not be the cause of pain and suffering for others? Here in this phrase, they kill themselves, the selves they love so much, it's clear that this self that Shantideva is talking about is the psychological self, the illusory self. 38. And when, as victims of defilement, beings even cause their own destruction, even if compassion does not arise in us, we can at least refrain from being angry. So if you see that anger arising in yourself and you don't understand where it's coming from, that's probably a time to take a break, or at least take a breath, a time for one of those advices that teachers have learned to give to their students. Before you speak, take 3 breaths. It it can work magic sometimes with kids. The commentary says we have to be honest with ourselves. At this point in our Bodhisattva career, it may be asking too much to have compassion for some unlikable troublemaker. We all know somebody like that. But we can at least refrain from speaking or acting out of anger. Even if we can't shed a tear over the ridiculousness of the human condition, by refraining from retaliation and the misery it causes, we will do what's best for everyone. As Swami Veda would often say, don't just do something, sit there. Sit there with an open heart. Gaze into the moment before you with a sense of wonder and curious interest. What's going on here? What is happening in that person? And in the process of doing that, you may come up with an idea about how you can improve their situation. Are they angry because their blood sugar has fallen to a certain level? This happens between Scott and me all the time. If he's getting testy with me in a certain particular way, I know it's because his blood sugar's been dropping and we need to eat something right now. So I'll suggest let's talk about this in 5 minutes, but for the moment, let's sit down and eat something. And it always works. It's amazing. So that kind of magic comes to you when you sit and just look at what's going on in front of you. Verse 39. If those who are like wanton children are by nature prone to injure others, what point is there in being angry? Like resenting fire for its heat. 40. And if their faults are fleeting and contingent, if living beings are by nature wholesome, it's likewise senseless to resent them, as well be angry at the sky for having clouds. It's a wonderful metaphor. Resent fire for its heat? I mean, these things that are going on that irritate us in other people are natural phenomena. And we may not understand them yet, but it certainly isn't going to help the situation for us to get all worked up about it. And if we can find a way to just take a break and look and open up our awareness, and by doing that, our heart in that situation, something may come to us that would be helpful. And even just the process of doing that is helpful. There's a phenomenon in therapy that was discovered, in quotation marks, by these two guys named Bandler and Grinder years ago, the neuro-linguistic programming people. The phenomenon is called pacing and leading. And what they discovered is that you can actually mechanically create rapport with another person by simply matching the rate of their breathing. And try this experiment with somebody in your own life, and I think you'll be amazed. Just pay attention to what the rhythm of their breathing is, and you match that rhythm. You will start to feel what they feel. You will immediately create a certain rapport. That's called pacing another person. Then, once that link is established, if you start to change your rate of breathing, chances are the other person will start to change as well. So that's establishing a pace and then using it to lead the person in a certain direction. And that same thing happens in that moment when you all of a sudden take a breath, let your awareness come back online again. Your heart opens up, and all of a sudden you can think of something to do. Or if not, you can just sit there quietly and help the other person calm down.
So,
It's really,
so in in that situation, if you're pacing someone who is in distress, their breathing is going to be erratic and halting. So you're saying that the process is actually to get to that same level of erratic and uneven breathing, and then slowly bring it back to.
well, you you can establish that rapport. I mean, if you're really, I mean, one of the things that's interesting about this is that they sort of presented this whole thing in their writing as if it were just a technique, just something that you do in a kind of technical way, a sort of jujitsu that you use to operate on people somehow. But it's also the case that when people are really listening to another person, this happens automatically. You automatically start to establish a rapport with that person. And a lot of the rhythms of your nervous system begin to align with their nervous system. And if you understand how that process works, then you can gradually be an instrument for helping them to calm down out of that state. And it also, I mean, over time, as you become more habituated to remaining in that aware state most of the time, you just automatically keep your balance. This is what upeksha means. You don't get thrown off by other people's attitude and behavior. And you can keep that sense of balance and poise that allows the calmness in your mind to gradually infiltrate that other person's mind field and help them to calm down just by being there. Does that make sense, Mino?
Yeah, it does. I actually was thinking of Peksha as you were talking before.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I've actually read an article. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
But I read a little thing about it's called synchronized walking. It sounds exactly like this. And
Sure.
my husband and I have done this many times. Let's say we're out for a walk, and there's something that we need to discuss or conflict. But if there's a conflict, we will just walk at we don't talk. We just try and walk at the same pace. We slow down a bit and we just go for the entire walk at this. We pace together and it just seems to, we both get in a much better mood or something. And then we talk about it some other, whatever, we work it out. But it is about synchronizing our walking and we both have to just be like, okay, it just works.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It does. And it happens in so many different ways. You do it with walking, somebody may do it with breathing.
Yeah.
Another way it happens is when you sing with other people.
Yes. Yes.
There's a sort of synchronization of rhythms in your brain waves that occurs when you sing with people, when you dance. That's also part of dancing is a movement-based form of experimenting with boundaries with another person. I have
And
a
I
friend,
think
a friend who
even
talks about,
listening,
go ahead.
sorry, I think even listening to music together, if you're really listening.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's right. I have a friend who talks about the different stages of dating. And about 3 steps into the process is dancing, because dancing is about what's possible between the two of us. And how many of us have a lovely memory of getting closer to someone dancing with them? I used to be a huge folk dancer. I did New England contra dancing for years. And I could never figure out why at the end of an evening of contra dancing, I felt so good. I mean, it was amazing medicine for me at that time. And there were all kinds of reasons why it made me feel better. Part of it was the synchronization, part of it was also the aerobic exercise that I was getting. So, but it's it's an illustration of how you can help people just with your presence. And that's just, it's such an underrated skill in in life, being able to really be with people. Moving on to verse 41. Although indeed it is the stick that hurts me, I'm angry at the one who wields it, striking me. But he is driven and impelled by anger, so it is his wrath I should resent. Not that person, but the anger that the person has. So this begins to interrupt the process of your getting infected by somebody else's klesha. This process of awareness is what Gandhi taught to the Satyagrahis in the 1930s so that they could end up presenting themselves to British soldiers and get beaten and not resent the soldiers, not get into a fight about it, not make it a struggle. Because in that struggle, the Brits have the guns. If you make it a physical fight, they're probably going to win. But what Gandhi presented themselves with, which was just so brilliant, was something where they could not win. If the Satyagrahis really did their work, they couldn't win. You know, it's like the police on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. That single episode propelled the civil rights movement into the forefront of American life because they so clearly saw the cruelty that was going on there. And it's not like Martin Luther King and the others fought back. They didn't fight. They did get beaten, but they understood what was necessary about that. And their presence in that situation is what moved the movement forward.
So it's a present day Satyagrahi, the one at the ICE protests with a camera, with a cell phone, capturing what's going on. If they are emotionally uninvolved, just kind of capturing the truth.
Right. And, you know, there were some people who kind of lost their momentum in all of that and started pursuing the officers or spitting at them and that kind of stuff. And uh, the officers fought back. I mean, they used their clubs and their tear gas and everything else. But the people, fortunately, the vast majority of people who were demonstrating did it peacefully. And
I like,
especially the thing that really seemed to turn the situation here in Minneapolis is when people started singing at those protests. Because once they started singing, they really couldn't get themselves into a fight. It was just marvelous that
yeah,
that happened. And it really changed everybody's behavior. I was the one demonstration that I went to is the demonstration that was sponsored by Common Ground, the Buddhist sort of walking meditation, walking to the different sites where people had been killed.
Was
And
that the
that,
silent walk?
yeah, it was a silent walk, and that was just a wonderful experience. I couldn't end up walking quite the whole way, but I walked about two-thirds or three-quarters of it, and it was really wonderful. People really did keep their silence. It was great.
the singing and silence are both great. Some of the chants I don't quite go for And then they can be kind of ambiguous when they stand up, fight back. It's like, well, it depends on how you're fighting back, but you can fight back non-violently.
Right. What's the what's the anthem of the Black Civil Rights Movement? This
Still
little light
overcome.
of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Just the right stuff. It's not a fight song. No, it's not an invitation to get into a conflict with somebody.
I just have to say, I mean, this is my pet peeve,
Mhm.
but even that language is used for headlines. I mean, there can be a little story on the news or in the paper about some little topic, and it's like the headline is always they fight back, whatever the topic is. It's the silliest thing. And I'm like, why do we have to use this language constant with this constant language? It's much quicker to say fight back than other longer ways to phrase it, but it's just I think it's so overused these days. Just like
Well, and I think that's one of the problems that's sort of inherent to the media atmosphere is that conflict sells.
yeah.
Conflict gets people's attention. And, so much of this stuff is about getting people's attention. Um, yeah, I absolutely understand how you feel about that, Roseanne. Makes sense.
Okay, back to the book.
42. I it was who in the past did harm to beings such as these. And so when others do me mischief, it is only just that they should, it is only just that they should injure me. Now that's the real karmic principle that what goes around comes around. And when you encounter um, misfortune in your life or misbehavior on somebody else's part, I mean, I just do my best to think, well, I must have earned this somehow from something I did in my past. So how can I get through this and keep my balance? Um, Children makes an interesting observation here in the commentary. She says, my favorite clarification of this misunderstanding comes from Kelsang Gyatso's book, Meaningful to Behold. If a child is told not to play with matches and does so anyway, it may result in her getting burned. Then the child has a chance to learn about cause and effect firsthand. As a result, she might conclude for herself that being careless with matches has painful results. She's wiser because of her mishap. But if the child feels she got burned as a punishment for not obeying mommy and daddy, then all she learns is guilt. Her intelligence is interfered with, and she doesn't profit from her mistake. I struggle with somebody who lost a family member in the last year and is just constantly blaming herself because they fought all the time. And her guilt about that has prevented her so far from understanding that she can change the way she relates to people based on her observations about what happened with her brother. But as long as she feels this sense of guilt, she's attached to that idea that she's bad. And getting people past that sense of guilt, or even worse, the sense of shame, which I think is a more devastating emotion. Although the Eastern and Western understanding of those two words is different, genuinely different. It gets in the way of your ability to exercise awareness about the results of your action and your behavior. verse 43 says, their weapons and my body, both are causes of my suffering. They their weapons drew while I held out my body. Who then is more worthy of my anger? The words or actions of others can wound us. Children says, the words or actions of others can wound us as much as any weapon. The meaning of this verse is that both their words and my reactivity are equally responsible for my pain. That's the thing. How do you get triggered into a reaction? And of course, the fix for that is awareness, to try and see that reaction as it's beginning to arise so that you can take the moment to ask yourself, is this skillful? Is it going to be helpful for me to act this way? And gives you the freedom to choose to do something different. And slowly over time, the more you cultivate mindfulness, the more you exercise that awareness, the more that reactivity gradually reduces as you find better ways to respond in your life. 44. This human form is like a running sore. Merely touched, it cannot stand the pain. I'm the one who clings to it with blind attachment. Whom should I resent when pain occurs? And pain is, as I've often said, is an unfortunately great teacher. 45. We who are like senseless children shrink from suffering but love its causes. We hurt ourselves. Our pain is self-inflicted. Why should others be the object of our anger? Anger being the frustration of our desire. Who indeed should I be angry with? Verse 46. This pain is all my own contriving. Likewise, all the janitors of hell and all the groves of razor trees. Sometimes in therapy, people complain that they feel like they're in hell, or they feel like they're going to somehow go to hell. And I will ask them sometimes, do you need more hell than you've already got? Don't we all have quite enough hell to deal with at the moment, one way or another? The pain is self-inflicted because it's the frustration of our desire which we remain attached to. So when you find yourself being angry and frustrated, look for the roots of it in the desires. 47. Those who harm me come against me, summoned by my evil karma. But they will be the ones who go to hell, and so it is myself who bring their ruin. Children says 47 verses 47 through 51 are contemplations on the pain that purifies oneself but hurts the person who inflicts it. This is another idea that seems difficult for Westerners to accept. When someone harms us, they create the cause of their own suffering. They do this by strengthening habits that imprison them in a cycle of pain and confusion. It's not that we're responsible for what someone else does, and certainly not that we should feel guilty. But when they harm us, we unintentionally become the means of their undoing. Had they looked on us with loving kindness, however, we'd be the cause of their gathering virtue. What I find helpful, she says, in this teaching, is that what's true for them is also true for me. The way I regard those who hurt me today will affect how I experience the world in the future. In any encounter, we have a choice. We can strengthen our resentment or our understanding and empathy. We can widen the gap between ourselves and others or lessen it. This is that wonderful saying by Swami Rama. You are the architect of your life, and you decide your destiny. You create your future now, at this moment. This is why attending to life here and now is so important, because it's the key to what the future can be. It's also the answer to what the past has become. We live in the here and now with awareness because that's how we create the future we want to live in. And it's also how we come to understand the path that has emerged in us from the past. It seems kind of simple to say it, but it's an enormously profound truth. And the moment you really understand that, it gets a lot easier to let go of the future and the past. Because you understand that the place where you have the power to improve things is now and here. 48. Because of them and through the exercise of patience, my many sins are cleansed and purified. But they will be the ones who, thanks to me, will have the long-drawn agonies of hell. Almost sounds like Schadenfreude. 49. Therefore, I am their tormentor. Therefore, it is they who bring me benefit. Thus, with what perversity, pernicious mind, will you be angry with your enemies? 50. For if a patient quality of mind is mine, I shall avoid the pains of hell. But though indeed I save myself, what of my foes? What fate's in store for them? An interesting thought. As a bodhisattva, isn't it my commitment and my charge to help prevent that from happening? There's a motivation for emotional purification. And 51. If I repay them harm for harm, indeed they'll not be saved thereby, and all my noble actions will be spoiled. Austerity of patience brought to nothing. I love that phrase, austerity of patience. That's wonderful. Our knee-jerk reactions can screw it all up and make it hard for us to grow our sense of compassion in the world. Again, this was Jesus' whole mission. The first century world of Palestine was a really unforgiving place. It was unforgiving enough under the interpretation of the time of the Jewish laws, even more so given the oppression of the Roman Empire. And he was born into that place to change that aspect of how people lived. the people around him were expecting a soldier king, somebody who would kick the Roman emperor out of Judea. Pretty small potatoes compared to what Jesus was really about. And, they just had such trouble understanding him, understanding this aspect of him. And this is one of the reasons why I think it's a sound argument that the theory of karma and reincarnation was something that was current in first century Palestine. I mean, people used to ask Jesus all the time, "Are you Elijah? Come back to us. Are you Elijah reborn?" People understood this way of understanding things. And that's the part of Jesus' presence that touched them so deeply. Yeah, they were kind of moved by what he said. And, thankfully there were people there taking it down. But what was really behind those words was the love, the compassion, the empathy, and the willing to act on that empathy in a way that made everybody better. So Buddha and Shantideva and Jesus and all the others are so non-different in that regard. What a beautiful chapter this was. I can see why Swami Veda fell in love with this text. It really is marvelous. Questions or comments? There are some. David has put a whole bunch of stuff in the comments that looks pretty helpful. Particularly this stop memnonic. Slow down, take a breath, observe the present moment. Process possibilities. That's good. I'm going to remember that. Other comments or questions that people have? Well, thank you, everybody. This has been the typical marvelous evening. I so appreciate the way that our time together seems to draw stuff out of me, I guess. Let's take 2 minutes to just sit in open-hearted connection with each other. Tat Sat Brahmarpanamastu. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next Monday and we'll launch off into chapter 7.
Thank you, Stoma.
Have a great week,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks, Stomaji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stomaji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stoma, grazie.
Prego.
Thank you.